Hey everybody, thanks for coming into the channel. I am McNeil Entertainment, and today we are going to be taking the 2025 political quiz. The last result I got showed that I was 62% Democrat and a certain percentage Republican. I don't remember, but today we are going to be doing that. And before we begin, I would like to ask y'all, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button and click on the notification bell so you never miss any of my content. Let's begin. Should California temporarily allow lawmakers, instead of an independent commission, to redraw congressional maps for the 2026-2030 elections? No. No, because that would end up being biased. And on a side note, this is quite a bit of a big quiz, so I will be doing this for quite a while here. And on a side note, on the YouTube short that I did share, I am a Blue Dog Democrat. That is basically what I got last time, but moving forward, should the government implement rent control policies to limit the amount landlords can charge for rent? Absolutely. Have you ever seen how many homeless people are being, how many people that are actually homeless and how many people are actually struggling to pay rent? Definitely. People should not be working their lives away or giving a big majority of their pay that they get to go towards rent just in order for them to survive, because you also got to afford clothes, got to afford, if you have a vehicle, got to afford those payments, and at the same time, other necessities that we do have in this life. Not luxuries, necessities. Should homeless individuals that have refused available shelter or housing be allowed to sleep or encamp on public property? No. No. If shelter or housing is available, you get your butt in there. Should the government provide subsidies for first-time home buyers? That actually depends on what subsidy it is, but for the general part of the question, yes. The government should cover the entire or half or even 3/4 of the house payment for first-time home buyers, especially if they are low income. Should the government incentivize construction of affordable housing? Absolutely. Should the government increase funding for homeless shelters and services? Absolutely, to help with the homeless epidemic. Should new housing developments be required to include green spaces and parks? Green spaces and parks? Green spaces in housing development areas are designed for parks and natural landscapes to enhance residents' quality of life and environmental health. Proponents argue that it enhances community well-being and environmental quality. Opponents argue that it increases the cost of housing and developers should decide the layout of their projects. No. Should the government restrict the purchase of residential properties by foreign investors? Absolutely. If you aren't an American, you cannot buy land. If you're currently residing in another country, you cannot invest and buy land, especially residential properties. Should the government provide assistance to homeowners facing foreclosure? Oh, definitely. If homeowners are struggling to pay their note, then yes, the government should help provide assistance. Should the government incentivize the construction of high density residential? Wait, is this for high rises? I'm not even going to read this. Only the question. No. And I'm saying no because I'm thinking about for emergencies. I'm not all in favor of high rises because you really got to think deep into that. Should the government pay for full? Should the federal government pay for tuition at four-year colleges and universities? It depends. If it's for government jobs, including teaching jobs, yes. For anything else, it should be assisted. Well, the federal government should assist in the payments. But otherwise, yes. Should CRT be taught in K-12 now? Do you support increasing taxes for the rich in order to reduce interest rates for student loans? Yes. Should the federal government fund universal preschool? Absolutely, because parents, they are already affording too much. They are buying way too much, and their budgets, they're even going beyond their means just in order to help raise the kid. Do you support Common Core national standards? Oh, as a student in school, I hated these. But I can see why they're needed. Yes. And yes, I support charter schools. I support public and private, okay? No, the government should not decriminalize school truancy. No. Should the government offer students a voucher that they can use to attend private schools? Absolutely. Because every child deserves quality education. Should colleges be held financially accountable if graduates with degrees leading to lower income jobs default on their student loans? Yes. Because the colleges, they're not always up to date on everything, and that's more or less on their fault. Should the government impose stricter fuel efficiency standards on vehicles? No. Should the government require all new cars to be electric or hybrid by a certain date? No. Should the government implement stricter emission standards for diesel vehicles? No. Should the government provide subsidies for the development of high-speed rail networks? Yes. And this is mostly coming from biased answer because I do like trains. But for the taxpayer money, yes, because not everyone takes their own vehicles. Not everyone owns vehicles. And a lot of people rely on public transport. Should the government invest in the development of smart transportation infrastructure? Wait, aren't traffic lights already smart as they're programmed and stuff? No. Should the government increase spending on public transportation? Yes. Should the government provide incentives for carpooling and the use of shared transportation services? No. Should the government require public transport systems to be fully accessible to people with disabilities? Yes. Should the government promote the use of bicycles by expanding bike lanes and bike sharing programs? No. In case if y'all noticed, hardly anybody ever uses bike lanes. Hardly anybody. Should the government subsidize ride-sharing services for low-income individuals? Ride-sharing. Uber and Lyft? No. But if it's for medical transportation, then yes. But no. Should the government regulate the development and deploy of... Oh, no. Because with this question right here, autonomous vehicles, no. We've all seen those videos where Teslas are just crashing into each other and stuff. No way. Should cities implement congestion pricing to reduce traffic in busy urban areas? No. Because, for one, right here, opponents argue that it unfairly targets lower income drivers and may simply shift congestion to other areas. That's why. And I've read this question before. Should the government increase penalties for distracting driving? Yes. Especially as many people are driving distracted and they will say, oh no I don't. Yes you do. Don't even lie. Should the government restrict the use of advanced tech in vehicles to maintain human control and prevent over-reliance on technology? Yes, because modern vehicles these days, you got pretty much everything in there. It's not just a vehicle that you can just drive anymore. It's basically just a house on wheels these days. Should cities designate special lanes? No. Absolutely not. We've all seen bad drivers, and those bad drivers, they're going to take use of those autonomous vehicle lanes. So no. Should the government regulate airline frequent flyer programs? No. Because those flyer programs, they are private property type of companies, and they can do what they wish. This question is a hoot. Should the government eliminate all traffic laws and rely on voluntary compliance? No. If we eliminate all that, nobody would just come to a stop for somebody else. No, we have these rules for a reason. Should the government enforce mandatory GPS tracking in all vehicles to monitor driving behavior and improve road safety? Yes and no. Well, yes, to help. Well, for road safety, yes. But at the same time, it would be to help in case if the vehicle got stolen and basically the vehicle will just have the license plate in its system that it would be assigned to for GPS tracking, and well, basically yes. That's the only reason why I'm saying yes to it instead of just answering it like the way it wants me to, but no. Should there be more restrictions on the current process of purchasing a gun? Mental health checks. You should take in order to buy a gun, you have to prove that you are competent. I can legally own a gun. I am competent enough to own a gun. I've yet to own one, but I will soon. Should victims of gun violence be allowed to sue firearm dealers and manufacturers? No. Should teachers be allowed to carry guns at school? Yes. Y'all see in the news? We should all pay attention to gun violence in the schools. Should the Supreme Court be reformed to include more seats and term limits on judges? No. Do you support affirmative action programs? No, because affirmative action programs, they are a form of legalized racism, to where if the company doesn't have anybody that's black, they have to hire them. Or if they don't have anybody that's Asian, they have to hire them. I just use that as an example. But no, we do not need affirmative action programs. Let the private business sector do as they wish. Are you in favor of decriminalizing drug use? Yes, but for most, but not all drugs. Should the people on the no-fly list be banned from purchasing guns and ammunition? No. It's easy to get put on the no-fly list. Example, you're having a bad day in the airport and you have a little mental breakdown because you're too exhausted, you're too stressed. No. You would automatically be put on the no-fly list because they would see you as a danger at that moment in time. But no, there's too many people that are wrongly on the no-fly list. Should it be illegal to burn the American flag? Well, no, it should not, because I can see it as protected free speech. Even though I don't like it, it should be protected free speech and legal to burn the flag, even though I don't agree with it. Should Supreme Court justices be banned from making financial transactions with people who have vested interest in court outcomes? Yes, because it's showing bias and bribery and such. Do you support the Patriot Act? What's the Patriot Act again? No. Because they need a warrant for all that stuff. And because they are not violating our constitutional rights with that. Example, I plead the Fifth and then the Fourth Amendment. Should the government be allowed to seize private property with reasonable compensation for public or civic use? No. Because this is where eminent domain comes in. And I don't support eminent domain. Should the government regulate social media sites as a means to prevent fake news and misinformation? No, because that also violates free speech, even on private platforms. May not like it, but should those charged in the J6 attack be granted presidential pardons? No. Should redrawing of congressional districts. Wait, didn't I just answer this? Yeah, I did. This is the same thing as the first question. Just reworded differently. Should the United States acquire Greenland? I'm on the fence on this one because it's a yes and no. Well, example, yes, we should acquire Greenland to have it part or a territory of the United States, and at the same time to help their economy too. But at the same time, if they end up becoming one of our states or a territory, that means funding to them also gets closed. But no, the U.S. does not need to expand its global footprint at this time. Should members of Congress be allowed to trade stocks while serving in office? Well, everybody has the right to trade stocks, except if they've been convicted of certain crimes involving it. Should the U.S. government grant immunity to Snowden? Absolutely, because Snowden is a hero. Should the social media companies ban political advertising? No. This one's also the same question but reworded differently. Should convicted criminals have the right to vote? Yes. Yes, but not the ones currently incarcerated. The ones that are out on probation and parole? Yes. Same with house arrest, too. Should funding for local PD be redirected to social and community-based programs? No. Should police terms be allowed to use military-grade weapons? Yes. Do you support qualified immunity for police officers? Yes, but only for officers that have a clean record of no complaints. I also support this one too, that provide more training and education for police officers. Do you support mandatory minimum prison sentences for people charged with drug possession? No. Do you support limiting police unions' collective bargaining power for cases involving misconduct? Yes. Should nonviolent offenders be released from jail in order to reduce overcrowding? Yes. When I say yes, I'm also meaning that they should both be under house arrest and perform community service, but unfortunately we could choose one or the other, so place them under house arrest. Should prisons ban the use of solitary confinement for juveniles? Yes, ban the use of solitary confinement for juvies. Should drug traffickers receive the death penalty? Yes, as long as they are given a fair trial. And only if there is proof that someone died from the drugs that they have trafficked. Should the government implement restorative justice programs as an alternative to incarceration? Yes. Not everyone arrested is guilty. However, if you have committed the crime, you have to do the time. Should the penalty for traffic violations depend on driver's income? No. Should police officers be required to wear body cameras? Yes. Private prisons? Nope. AI used to make decisions in criminal justice system? Nope. Should the government require employees of large businesses to be vaccinated from COVID? Nope. Should the federal government increase funding for healthcare for low-income individuals? Yes. Should the government continue to fund who? Yes. Do you support the Obamacare? Yes. Yes, I do. Should the government forgive all medical debt for Americans? Yes. Should people be required to work in order to receive Medicaid? No. Do you support a single-payer healthcare system? Absolutely, I do. And this healthcare system and the ACA should also involve dental stuff as well. Should cities open drug safe havens where people who are addicted to illegal drugs can use them under supervision of medical professionals? Yes, but only certain kinds of drugs, to be honest. Should the federal government be allowed to negotiate drug prices for Medicare? Yes. Because have you seen the cost of medications? They're expensive. Should there be more or less privatization? Should there be more or less of privatization of veterans' health care? Yes, for less. Less privatization because they are our vets. Should the government eliminate price caps on generic drugs? Yes. Should medical boards penalize doctors who give health advice that contradicts contemporary scientific consensus? Yes. Should the government ban the promotion of products that contribute to unhealthy lifestyles, such as vaping and junk food? No. It's the American way. We have the freedom to choose. We have free will to choose this, just like we have free will to choose God and whatnot. Should the government increase funding for mental health research and treatment? Yes. Should the government regulate the prices of life-saving drugs? Yes. Should health insurers be allowed to deny coverage to individuals who have a pre-existing condition? No. Do you support the legalization of marijuana? Yes. Should the president be able to authorize military force against Al-Qaeda or any terrorist organization without congressional approval? No. That's how you start wars. Should the government use facial recognition technology for mass surveillance to enhance public safety? No. Because things are always getting hacked, and for cybersecurity, this would be a way bigger issue. Should the president mobilize U.S. military against Mexican drug cartels? No, but only if coordinated with Mexico's government, and only for operations within our country's border. Should the government implement a national ID system to enhance security and fraud? Well, prevent fraud? Yes. Because we all gotta know who we are. Should the government require tech companies to provide backdoor access to encrypted communications for national security purposes? Yes. Should the U.S. assassinate suspected terrorists in foreign countries? Well, yes, but only if there is undeniable evidence for both. Should the government invest in AI? No. Should the government ban its citizens from using cross-border payment methods? No. We've all seen the thing with crypto. Should illegal immigrants have access to government-subsidized healthcare? No. Should the U.S. build a wall along the border? Yes. Should sanctuary cities receive federal funding? No. Should local law enforcement be allowed to detain illegal immigrants for minor crimes and transfer them to federal immigration authorities? Yes, all illegal immigrants should be turned over to federal authorities and deported. Should undocumented immigrants be offered in-state tuition rates? No. Should the U.S. increase restrictions on its current border security? Yes. Should children of illegal immigrants be granted legal citizenship? Yes. Should working illegal immigrants be given temporary amnesty? Yes. Yes, we should deport illegal immigrants, but at the same time, if they are doing their job as they need be and obeying all the other laws, then yes. If they have no criminal record, then we should give them a simple path to citizenship. Yes. If they commit a serious crime, yes, deport them. Should immigrants from high-risk countries be banned from entering the country until the government improves its ability to screen out potential terrorists? Yes. Should the U.S. increase or decrease the amount of temporary work visas given to high-skilled immigrant workers? Increase. Should immigrants be required to learn English? No. It would help, but no. If it's like for CDL jobs or DOT jobs, then yes. Should immigrants be required to pass citizenship tests to demonstrate a basic understanding of our country's language, history, and government? Yes. Should the U.S. declare a national emergency at the Mexico border? Yes. Should asylum seekers be required to remain in Mexico while their cases are processed? No. Should immigrants be able to hold dual citizenship? No. Should foreigners currently residing in the U.S. have the right to vote? Yes, but after living in the country for 5 years. Should photo ID be required to vote? Yes. Should the Electoral College be abolished? No. Should a politician who has been formally convicted of a crime be allowed to run for office? Now I'm actually stuck on this one. It's a yes and no. But it really depends on the crime. But for the main part, no. Should every voter automatically receive a mail-in ballot? Nope. Should there be a limit to the amount of money a candidate can receive from a donor? Yes. Should political candidates be required to release recent tax returns to the public? No. That is none of their business. None of our business, actually. Should corporations, unions, and nonprofits be allowed to donate to political parties? No. That is what looks to be like bribery. Because it's not. Well, it is bribery, but it's not bribery at the same time. Should there be a 5-year ban on White House and Congress officials from becoming lobbyists after they leave the government? No. Should politicians over age 75 be required to pass a mental competency test? Yes. Because they got to know what they're doing. Should foreign lobbyists be allowed to raise money for American elections? No. Should the minimum voting age be lowered? Yes. Any citizen that pays taxes should be allowed to vote. Oh, science issues. I think we're almost done here. Should the government require children to be vaxxed to prevent diseases? Yes, but with exceptions for those whose religious beliefs forbid the use of vaccines. Religious freedom. Should the government allow the commercialization of lab-grown meat? No. No. Do you support the use of nuclear energy? No. Look at Chernobyl. Look at Japan. I think it was Fukushima. But no nuclear energy. Should the government fund research into genetic engineering for disease prevention? No. Should the government regulate the use of CRISPR? No. Should producers be required to label GMOs? Yes. Should the government fund space travel? No. Because we're basically done with space. Should the government increase tax rate on profits earned from the sale of stocks, bonds, and real estate? Yes. Should the technology of our financial system transition to a decentralized protocol that isn't owned or controlled by any corp similar to the internet? No. Should the U.S. raise taxes on the rich? Yes. Should the government raise the federal minimum wage? Yes. Do you support a universal basic income program? No. Should the U.S. raise or lower the tax rate for corporations? Lower. Should employers be required to pay men and women the same? No, the 1963 Equal Pay Act. Should welfare recipients be tested for drugs? Yes. Do you believe labor unions help or hurt the economy? Help. Should the government make cuts to public spending in order to reduce the national debt? No. Should there be more or fewer restrictions on current welfare benefits? Fewer. Should the government enforce a cap on CEO pay relative to the pay of their employees? No. Should the current estate tax rate be decreased? Yes. Should the government require businesses to pay salaried employees making up to $46,000 a year, time and a half for overtime hours? Yes. Should the government tax unrealized gains? No. Should the government use economic stimulus to aid the country during times of recession? Yes. Should the U.S. transition to a 4-day work week? No. Should the government break up? No, those are private companies. Should the government increase environmental regulations to prevent climate change? No. Should the U.S. withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement? No. Should drilling be allowed in Alaska? No. Expand offshore drilling? No. Should the government stop construction of the Dakota pipeline? No. Should government fund research into geoengineering as a way to combat climate change? No. Do you support the use of hydraulic fracking? No. Should the government give tax credits or subsidies to the wind power industry? Yes. Should the government invest in programs to reduce food waste? Yes. Should disposable products that contain less than 50% biodegradable material be banned? Yes. Should researchers be allowed to use animals in testing the safety of drugs, vaccines, medical devices, and cosmetics? No. Should the government build a network of EV charging stations? No. Should the government provide subsidies for companies developing carbon capture technology? No. Should the government provide subsidies for taxpayers who purchase an EV? No. Should the government support EV adoption? No. Should cities be allowed to offer private companies economic incentives to relocate? Yes, but only if the company promises to create new jobs by hiring local residents. Can they Should the US lift the moratorium on LNG export licenses? Oh, definitely. Okay, this is funny. That is actually funny. Should the foreign terrorism suspects be given constitutional rights? Nope. Domestic terrorists? Yes. Foreign? No. Do you support a two-state solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict? Hmm. I'm going to say yes, because I don't really know, to be honest. I really don't know what that question's asking, even with that description. Should the government increase or decrease military spending? Increase. Should the United States provide military supplies and funding to Ukraine? No. Should the U.S. continue to support Israel? Yes. Should the U.S. increase or decrease foreign aid spending? Decrease. Should the military be allowed to use enhanced interrogation techniques to gain info from suspected terrorists? Yes. Should the U.S. remain in the United Nations? Yes. And the U.S. should remain in NATO. Should military fly drones over foreign countries gain intelligence and kill suspected terrorists? No. The military has no right to do so without a congressional declaration of war. Should every 18-year-old be required to provide at least 1 year military service? No. Should NATO join NATO? Yes. And yes, I support the trade and travel embargo on Cuba. Should the government cancel production of the F-35 fighter? No. Should the military use weapons guided by AI? Yes. Because the AI does help targeting, and it's also the computer's way of doing it too. Should the U.S. continue NSA surveillance of its allies? No. Should the U.S. defend other NATO countries and maintain low military defense budgets relative to their GDP? Yes. Should the U.S. sell weapons to India in order to counter Chinese and Russian influence? No. I am pro-life. Should the government continue to fund Planned Parenthood? No. The government should not give funds to any organization that performs abortions. However, the funding for organizations that support is the latter half of yes. Like save lives through cancer screening, prenatal services, and adoption referrals. It's the only part of that I support. But otherwise, no. Should the health insurance providers be required to offer free birth control? Yes. And not all women are sexually active, but they use birth control to help regulate their periods, to not make them as bad. Should gender identity be added to anti-discrimination laws? No. Do you support the legalization of same-sex marriage? Yes. Should trans athletes be allowed to compete against athletes that differ from their... No. Because it's not really fair to the cisgender sexes. Should gay couples have the same adoption rights as straight couples? Yes, as long as they can pass the same background checks. Should a business be able to deny service to a customer if the... Yes, I do believe that. Should the federal government require racial sensitivity training for employees? No. Should the government institute a mandatory buyback of assault weapons? No. Should universities provide trigger warnings for students? No. Should people under the age of 18 be able to receive gender transition treatments? No. Do you support the death penalty? But only, yes I do, but only for horrific crimes with undeniable evidence, and if the person shows no remorse for what they've done. Like if they're proud of what they've done. Should businesses be required to have women on their board of directors? No. Should government officially recognize only two biological sexes? Yes. Should DEI programs be eliminated from federal government agencies? Yes. Should the government support a separation of church and state? Nope. Should states be allowed to display the Confederate flag on government property? Yes, it symbolizes rebellion, not racism. And each state should have the right to display any flag they choose. And they should be able to fly to historical monuments where it was originally flown. So yes. Should government mandate that large tech companies share their algorithms with regulators? No. Should the government implement stricter regulations on these cryptocurrencies? Yes. Should artists be held to the same reporting and disclosure requirements as hedge funds, mutual trusts, and public companies when selling their artwork? No. Should the government impose stricter regulations on the collection and use of personal data by companies? Actually, yes, to help protect personal data. the government regulate AI to ensure ethical use? Yes, because AI is being used in the most wrong way. Should the government allow to secure their money as self-hosted digital wallets? No. That's how dark money happens. That's how illegal stuff happens too. Prefer to keep things in wallet and on card. Same with check. Okay, we're basically done here. And we shall see with whom that we basically, that I, for political party, am aligned with this time on this go around. But there are some questions there where I do have a yes and no answer, like I mentioned. Come on. I got internet. It's working. Okay. Whoa. What the? The Veteran Party, America, Party Constitution Party. No labels. Huh. That's funny. Republican 56%. Now where's the Democrat Party? 45%? Really? Really? That's an 11% difference. Hold on a moment. Yeah, I'm just referencing this with ChatGPT because look, Republican 56, Democrat 45, and I asked ChatGPT that I took iSideWith quiz, got 56% Republican, 45% Democrat. I thought I was a blue dog Democrat. Want to know what the response was? That makes actual sense. Getting 56 Republican and 45 Democrat on that quiz, very close to what a blue dog Democrat might score. And here's why. Blue dog Democrats are typically moderate or conservative Democrats. They often lean left on some social economic issues, but right on centrist on others, like fiscal responsibility, law enforcement, or gun rights. So depending on how you answered, the quiz might have placed you a little bit more on the Republican side, but still with a solid chunk of Democrat alignment. Basically, your results suggest you're in the centrist or moderate crossover zone, the kind of person who might agree with blue dog Democrats, moderate Republicans, or independents, depending on the issue. Hmm. I'm actually stunned, actually. Just so that way y'all can actually see this. Democrat and Republican. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 parties between the GOP and D. And I was a former libertarian. Wow, I really don't know how to actually respond to this. Actually, yeah. I'm still seeing myself as a blue dog Democrat, even though all the scores show this and make it look like I'm a Republican. But if you want, you can call me a Republican, even though I don't side with the party anymore due to the current elected congressional Republicans and Trump, because the party has shifted too far right for me. And due to that, I'm more or less on the Blue Dog Democrat side. But, yeah. If you like this, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss any of my content. This is McNeil Entertainment, signing off, you silly skull bandits.